What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. We're playing around with our Audi A4 B8 chassis. We're going to do some suspension bushings. I don't know if you caught our last video. We did a CVT transmission removal and replacement. So while we're under there, we noticed that our control arm bushings are shot. So let's get under there. All right, so obviously step one, get the wheel off. So depending on what style you have, we got the factory Audi. So we're going to pull that center cap off, get our impact, Milwaukee. Okay, so today what I was saying, we're going to work with these lower control arm bushings. So as you can see, this one, I mean, is it completely shot. When we were under here doing the CVT tranny replacement, and we noticed that one. So this one probably not terrible, but since we have, we're going to take the arm out, we're going to replace it, and then while we're here, we're going to go ahead and just do this rear one as well. Okay, so for these rear lowers here, there's two options depending on if you have the sport suspension or not. So on this car, we have the 75mm bushings. You may have the 65, so just double check those. You can just do a quick measurement with your caliper tool, and you see we're right there at 75. So we know we got to get 75. The 75, unfortunately, are a little bit more expensive. They're like 40 bucks versus the 65 are like 10 bucks. Okay, so you can tell somebody has already had this apart, replaced this arm before, because they did a little creative shaving of the bolt, so it makes it easy to bypass the boot. I mean, you can get it out, you just have to be careful. It's a triple square 12, so we're going to put a triple square 12 on this side, and the other side is an 18, so I'm just going to get my ratcheting wrench. It's tight. Okay. Okay. So like I said, they shaved the part of the head of the bolt just to make it easier, I should say, to get the bolt out. So now it clears the boot a little bit better. So I mean, that's not necessary, but like I said, sometimes you guys, you buy a car and this is what you got. Oh, also there's no, as you can see, there's no under tray, so the plastic tray. So if you got that, obviously you got to get your T25 out and remove that, get that out of your way. Sometimes you need to get a little punch. So just get a little punch there, and then give a little tap. And then you got that one out. Okay, so we're going to work on this outer bolt. Same thing, you got your 18. Also tight. Okay. All right, pulls out. I just set it back so we know which one came where. Last part of this arm is we switched to a 16mm, and this one's not very tight. It's only torqued down to about 40 Newton meters, so don't go crazy here, guys. It has a slot inside the ball joint, so you don't need to, go crazy. Now we got everything out. We can just pop it out, with a little pry bar here, get it out of the subframe. If you have the little socket tool for they call it the Strut socket, I'm just going to use a little chisel. Just get that in. I just spread it a little bit, and then this, should be free. Okay, no problem. And you just it's a little creative to get it out. You have to wiggle it and maneuver the suspension a little bit. Okay, so we're not going to mess around with the ball joint. Those were done, when they replaced this arm. So our only problem here is this bushing, but we're going to replace both of them. Okay, so we're on the passenger side. You may have, if no one's messed with the car before, you may have a little heat shield that you're going to need to remove. It's a couple two 10mm bolts and a 13. It's pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, like I said, someone's had this car apart, so that heat shield doesn't exist anymore. We're going to take our 18, and then we'll put our ratcheting wrench on this side and break it free. Okay, and we just got it loose now. It's a long bolt, lots of threads. Pull it out, and I just set it back to the side. Next, we're gonna take this other ball joint off. This is a, what is this, 21mm socket. Okay, and then I'm going to leave the nut on because we're not going to replace this. We're just going to replace this bushing. So I'm going to leave that on to protect the threads. Okay, so I got my little trick spreader tool we're going to use here. We're going to get it into position. Okay. All right, so what I like to do is I like to get some pressure on it. So crank it down a little bit so you can feel quite a bit of resistance. Okay, and then I get out my little handy torch, put a little heat on it. Just helps loosen things up, and since we want to, we don't want to change the ball joint. We want, because you got to basically change the whole entire arm on this one. It's pressed in, so we want to just save it. We don't want to mess up threads or do anything crazy, so we're going to heat it up and makes it just easier to come out. A little more pressure. All right, guys, this side is being difficult. The other side came off like we put a little pressure with the tool, put a little heat on it, and then voila, came right off. There we go. Sometimes you just got to get a BFH. Okay, so now that we got that side was a little stubborn, we can get our arm out and take it over to the press. Okay, so we got our 75mm bushings for here. We have our Limforder ones that's for this side, and then we got our other control arm bushings for this side. So let's start working on the big boy here and see if we can't press this out. Okay, so just so I want to make sure you guys are aware, there's a little arrow pointing towards the ball joint, and then as you see this little rectangle shape here. So I'm just going to put a little mark so we know that up is up kind of thing, so you can see this little arrow. The new one has the same arrow, so we want to make sure that it's consistent. We match it at the top. Okay, so we marked it, and as you can see, it's a little bit more proud on this side. So if we do a quick measurement, we're roughly around, it's around 21 on this side and roughly 17 on this side. So we want to just, I don't know how crucial it is, but just to save any alignment issues or whatever, we're just going to make sure we got 21 millimeters exposed on this side. Okay, so we just found a piece of pipe. We have our little platform here. This fits inside there nicely, so it gives us good exposure. And then we got some old wheel bearings here. We found one laying around that fits, good size, and then we're just going to do a little stack action here. And they're tight, but it's not that tight. This is actually an 8-ton, so it's not even the big boy. We got a 20-ton as well, but it's not even necessary. It's not that tight. So, okay, I'm making contact. Go ahead. As you can see, it's not crazy tight, so. Okay. There we go. There's our old mounts out. I mean, it's not bad. It's got, some little cracks, but like I said, we're in here, so let's toss it in. Okay, so as you can see, like we said, there's a little arrow there, so we're going to put the arrow on the blue side. And the other thing that we can do, all right, so we have our arrow. We know this is going to be that top portion, so we're going to just make sure that's visible and just make a little mark at our 20 millimeter 21 right there, so we know when to stop moving it forward. Nope, stop. It's just always double check as you're going down. If you feel a little resistance, all of a sudden something feels a little awkward, that we were just touching the edge of this inside pipe. So go ahead, back down. So if you feel something that feels a little odd when you're going down, then just stop, double check, because it should go in pretty uniform and smooth the whole way. It's never going to get hung up on anything. We were actually stuck on the edge of this pipe, so we're going to go down to our little 21 millimeter mark there. Okay, slow down. Yep, we're right there. Okay. Take it off. All right. So now we see we have our arrow at the bottom, and we got 21 and 17 facing the ball joint. Okay, so just so you guys know, we were that bushing, that one is right, the edge to press on is about 69, a little around 69, 70, and then the width inside there, so you can be clear, is obviously 77. So if you're using the 65, then you want to be a little bit bigger, 67, 68, and so forth, depending on the size that you got. Okay, so for this mount, we can actually just use a 36 millimeter deep socket. Fits perfectly there. So we're going to just get that into position, and then make sure we got the edge, just the edge, over a lip. And then there's a little, I'm going to just put a little something under this edge because it's just slightly narrower on this side versus here. So go ahead and bring it down. Okay, looks good, making contact. All right. Okay. And that 36 millimeter socket slips right through, so it actually works really, really great. Depending on how thick the wall is on the 36 you got, but I'd say almost every socket out there is going to work. Okay, raise it back up. All right, so yeah, that one you can definitely tell it was completely shot. All right, so we'll just get it in position, do the reverse of what we just did. We have our little green mark, we line it up with our blue, and then make sure we're just barely on the edge here. All right. Okay, so get our 36 into position, and we're gonna go ahead and lower it down. Getting close, making contact. Okay. All right, very good. And so this one, this bushing is actually centered, so we just want to leave that little few millimeters on each side. So we just want to basically get it centered inside the control arm. A little bit more. One more pump there. Again. One more. One more. Keep going, right. Half a pump. Okay, all right, release. And then you can just do a quick check, make sure. So we've got a little bit more to go. All right, so we'll go down just a couple more millimeters. All right, keep going. Keep going. One more pump. Okay. Bring it up just a little. Okay, that's good. All right, there we go. Now we got it nice and centered, and then we'll switch. Okay, so we used a 36 millimeter on that one, and on the smaller one, you can use a 32. Okay, 32. Go ahead. Okay. .32 fits nicely. Go ahead, go slow. Let's see if it. Is it? Yeah, it's getting stuck. Okay, so back it off. So 32 is a little bit too big. Let's go with a, what do we got here? 1 and 1/8. 1 1/8 will fit through. It's a little, doesn't make real good contact with the metal. So that 32 is good to get it started. And then we got a 1 1/8 that will, you know, once it starts moving, then the rest of it's easy. It just comes right out. Yeah, that 1 1/8 fits right in there, so no problem. Okay. That one, yeah, I mean, you can see it's cracked. It's definitely old, so get the new one. Same thing in reverse. This one is just perfectly round, so you don't need to worry about its orientation. I'm debating on, I think I want to use the 32. 32 makes a better contact, and since we don't have to push it through, like, you know, taking it out, we can make sure we're putting all of the stress onto the metal casing and not affecting the rubber at all. Okay. All right. Yeah. Like I said, they go in real nice. Doesn't take too much pressure. So if you have access to a press, obviously you can save yourself some money. And yeah, it's a little bit of work. Takes a little time, but you can save quite a bit. Just another little pump. Keep going. One more. And that's good. Back it off a little bit. Let's double check. Okay. Yep, looks good. Nice and centered. All right, so got our new stuff in. Let's get this into position. Kind of easier just to go into the wheel first. Get that ball joint in, and then give it a little wiggle. Up a little bit, so kind of push the wheel forward, go above. Might need to get a little rubber mallet. There we go. It's all about the angle of the dangle. So then we just get it, wiggle it a little bit, get our bolt through. Get our nut on the other side. All right, and okay, so we just got that started for now. We have our ball joint back in. So I just kind of seat the ball joint a little bit, start our nut, and then I'm not gonna tighten it, but we're just gonna cinch it down so everything's snug. Okay, for now, that's good. Okay, so the easiest way is just to, stick it back into the groove, and you kind of have it towards the front of the car. Get this lined up and let it drop in, and then you can just simply rotate it underneath that arm, and then I can take out my little spreader tool here. That's not necessary. And then, just a matter of kind of pushing the suspension around to get this, one in the subframe here. And of course it's tight because everything is new, so you might need that mallet. Give it a little love tap. Look for the lineup, okay? And then we have our little custom shave bolt here to get by the the steering rack boot. I mean, I guess it kind of works, makes it easier because there is a risk of tearing the boot. All right, so we'll just get a little punch. A little metal to metal makes a world of difference. All right, so we'll check the back here. As you can see, we're a little off. Then we just get our pry tool in there. You can just literally almost push it in by hand, but it needs a little massaging. Okay. Put our nut on, and then let's see if we can get this last one. Okay, so just you can kind of get a pry bar a little bit and maneuver this. You want to be able to get something in there just to be able to redirect a little bit. Okay, we'll use a little round screwdriver. Yeah, get it in position, double check the back side. Yeah, there we go, tweak it a little bit. Yeah, and then you can kind of maneuver it around, get your bolt, get it started, and then you can come around the back, and yeah, it's not bad. Just give a little pry. Okay. All right. All right, so we got our ball joint back seated. We got our 16 bolt back in. And this one's, like I said, just we're gonna snug it. All right, so before you tighten up each of those bushing bolts, you need to make sure the suspension is preloaded, so basically how the car would be sitting on the ground. So we're fortunate enough to be on the lift today, but if you're at home in the driveway, just get a bottle jack, put a bottle jack right underneath this knuckle here, and then just take the pressure off, make sure the suspension is quote unquote preloaded. So we're just gonna do that a little bit right now. Get it to where it's like it's sitting on the ground a little bit, and then we can go ahead and torque all of our bolts down. So the same thing for the front inner. You're going to do that 52 initial. Okay, and then we're going to do 180 rotation. We're going to go ahead and mark it at 3 o'clock, and then we're going to go over to 9 o'clock. And most of the time, you know, once you get it snug after the torque, this is not going to rotate on you, so you don't need to worry about holding the other end. Okay. Okay, so this one is torqued to initially 67. So we'll get to 67. All right, same thing. We're going to mark it at our 3 o'clock position, but then we're just going to rotate it 90 degrees to 6 o'clock. Same thing, once you get it snug and initial torque, the other side doesn't really turn, so. Okay, 5 o'clock. Tiny bit more. Okay, and just snug it. Okay, everything's snug. All right, and now we can switch, get our torque wrench. Okay, so for this rear one, we're gonna, initial torque is 70 Newton meters, or around 52 foot-pounds. So we'll do that first. All right, and then we'll switch to a bigger bar, and we'll do an additional rotation of 180 degrees. All right, so I'm just gonna make a little mark here. That way we know where our starting point is, and so we'll go from basically 3 o'clock over to 9 o'clock. Because you don't have a lot of access, so you can only do a little bit of ratcheting at a time, so. Okay, oh, we're at 7 o'clock. That's already getting crazy tight. Jesus, all right, there we go. Okay, so now we can relieve the preload off the suspension. So next up, we'll go to our ball joint here. It's a 16 millimeter, and like I said, it's not, it's only 12 foot-pounds, 40 Newton meters, so it's just snug. Remember that ball joint has a indent, so there's no way for it to come out, and that doesn't need to be that tight. You'll end up, I've seen some where people over tighten this and then break this tab off. Next up is the main ball joint. This is at 107 foot-pounds, or 145 Newton meters, so you got to get out the big half-inch drive torque wrench. Okay, there we go. All right, so and just throw your wheels back on. Okay, we just spin them up initially, and then we'll get it on the ground and do a quick torque on the lugs. so got it back on the ground. Set our torque wrench to 90. All right, put the cap back on. All right guys, so hopefully that helps you out with your control arm bushings. Like I said earlier, you can replace both arms in their entirety, but you're looking at about $200, $220 per side, so $400, $450. Otherwise, if you have the normal suspension, you're looking at about $25, $30 per side, and if you have the sport suspension like this car, you're looking at about 60 bucks. So you got $60, $120 versus about $220. So if you got the time and you got access to a little shop press, you can push them out, get them done, and get back on the road. No more clunks, no more squeaks, no more, weird sounds from the suspension. So catch you guys on the next one.